Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. I call to order the meeting of the Manassas Park Governing Body for Tuesday, January 10th, 2023. Before we get started, we would like to welcome a new member of the governing body, Councilmember Michael Carrera. Councilmember Carrera, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. I appreciate the opportunity. I want to thank all the residents who came out and voted in November, who voted for me, and those who said that code enforcement was a top priority. I will be your voice on this dais, and those who constantly reminded me the tax rate's too high, and we will find a solution for your tax issues, as many people in the community are just struggling with the tax being so high. Other than that, I appreciate the opportunity to work with everybody on this dais and look forward to trying to solve a lot of the issues here in the city of Manassas Park. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome. Next, we have approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda or additions? Okay. Seeing none, hearing none, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you. Next, please join us in a moment of silence. And Councilmember Amaya, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Just a gentle reminder for everyone, the microphones are directional, so please speak directly into the microphone. Next, we have public comment time. Ms. Frances Matson is signed up to speak. Would you approach the microphone, ma'am, state your name and address, and speak directly into the microphone?
I'm Fran Matson. I live at 141 Martin Drive. And I got some complaints about the neighbors across the street, 138 Martin and 123 Martin. We had a speed of the clocking 70 miles an hour coming down 141. And they're kids. And I think they hang out at 123. You know, if a kid popped out, it ain't no way they could stop. No way at all. And the neighbor across the street is 138. They come home, they back in the driveway. They got a parking lot back in the driveway, back behind the house. They got a parking lot. But they seem to take all the parking spaces out front. So that leaves other people that they can't park in front of their house. They don't have no consideration for others. And they were run off at the mouth. I don't know. I don't understand Spanish, which I'm American. I don't have to understand Spanish. I don't need to speak Spanish. I'm an American citizen. I was born in America. My parents before them, so forth and so forth. Now, I know the house at 139 or something has got a for sale sign on it. And they park anywhere they want to park. So I just ask them, hey, I'm handicapped, I can't walk a distance, so I need my parking space in front of my house. And they just look at you and laugh, like, don't you understand me? And they just smile at me. I know they understand me, but they don't want to confront me, you may as well say. I've been living there since 2000. I'm an old Manassas Park resident. I guess I'll die there. But you're all here to listen to me. And I voted for most of you. So now, you got to get there.
Thank you, ma'am. You,
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Mattson, and we have heard everything you said. Is there anyone else who would like to make public comment who is not signed up? Okay, I have a comment question for City Manager. Are we any closer to the answer about how many violent felons have been released into the community over the last couple years?
No, we're not. I'm hoping by budget time.
I beg your pardon?
I said I'm hoping by budget time, but no, we're not.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to 4A, public hearing. The topic of the public hearing is a waiver to allow live and work units at 100 Lara Street. I declare the public hearing open. Welcome, Mickey.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the governing body. Let me pull up the presentation. Okay, great. What we have you before this evening is a waiver identified as number 2205 for live work units at 100 Lara Street. The property in question is identified in red on the screen. And this is an aerial photo. It is the 7-story apartment building known as Artena at Manassas. And it's directly behind Park 170, previously known as City Center. There's two U-shaped buildings in the front. This is the zoning map, which identifies the property as MUD, which is mixed use downtown. To the north is B2, which is general business district. And the majority of the downtown on that side of Manassas Drive is zoned the same, MUD. Here is our comprehensive plan map, which identifies the different land use districts. You'll see the area in pink is the City Center Redevelopment District. To the north is essentially the Connor Center, which is most notably the Connor Center Redevelopment District. I wanted to highlight this is that this property is on the periphery of the City Center Redevelopment District, which is considered our downtown redevelopment area. So the applicant is requesting 15 live-work units at this property. The waiver is to increase the residential percentage of the gross floor area of the building to 93%. In the MUD district, the maximum is 75% for residential, but it can be increased with a waiver as the application is in front of you. And it would convert the ground level of the property to live-work units. Wanted to show a photo of the property. You can see on the bottom the commercial spaces. They do have paper on the windows, but those would be the storefronts where the units will be housed, but those will be the individual entryways. And live-work units, if you're not aware, combine residential space as well as commercial space where you could do offices or some type of retail or studio. Certainly no restaurants, but a seamstress or some other artist could go in there. And the applicant has shown the interiors of the live workspaces, which I'll bring up right now. What is identified in yellow is the commercial area for the units, and then the blue would be the residential space. Mostly the commercial area is the open area of the unit, starting from the front entrance into mostly the front area. The blue consists of your typical residential elements such as the bathroom, the kitchen, and there's a washer and dryer in there, and bathroom, of course. They do, on the opposite side to the right, the blue areas are actually lofts. So those will be the bedroom components of the unit. So they go upstairs to have the bedroom. And the various square footages, I keep hitting that, are identified on this plan, but you can reference that in the staff report. This is just another 3 of the live-work units, identifying the different areas, and these also have lofts with them in the blue on the bottom. It shows those loft spaces for those units. And lastly, here are the last few units. You'll note that 4 of them do not have lofts, so all of the residential components would be on the first floor for those units. Now, in evaluating whether this waiver is appropriate, we look at criteria within, as specified in the zoning ordinance, and it's whether or not the subject property is in conformance with a comprehensive plan, and whether the waiver fulfills or exceeds the general intent and purposes of the zoning ordinance in general and within the MUD district. I'm just going to give a brief overview. The more detail is provided in the staff report. But the city center redevelopment district certainly encourages a mix of uses: commercial, office, civic, and residential. And it also wants those uses to be in the best location and layout for those elements and uses to be successful. They certainly want an image of an urban downtown, and this combined use of residential and office is certainly appropriate for this district. Now, for the zoning ordinance, as I mentioned before, the live-work unit is a mix of commercial and residential. Those uses are both, of course, permitted in the MUD district. And the live-work units also does not increase the required parking. When you calculate the change in use for the parking, there are the most recently approved site plan for the site showed 68 spaces for the first floor commercial. The live-work units would actually generate 28 residential spaces and 37 commercial spaces, which is 65, so that's actually 3 spaces less than what is shown on the approved site plan. I would also note that when you're calculating commercial, it was taken at 1 space per 250 square feet of gross floor area, and the numbers provided did not was not gross floor area, it was the total floor area. When you do parking, you actually subtract out areas for hallways, elevators, and storage space and bathrooms. So actually the parking requirement would be a lot lower than what is presented, but it's still under what was already approved. One note, I know there's some concern about whether or not these would be live work. There would be a work component to this use. The applicant has offered in their lease that the tenant would be required to certify that they are using that commercial space. From an enforcement perspective, from my office, we would be looking to see if that tenant does have a business license, so that they would, to ensure that they are complying with an extra assurance that they are complying with the commercial component for that use. I wanted to mention that, and shown on the map, that this is on the periphery of our city center district. I don't want to take up what the applicant might say, but I know they've had some a struggle of renting out these spaces. So this is a appropriate use. It is a new, innovative use of live work. I know they've tried to do this in several different areas. I know Fairfax County, And actually, when I worked in Herndon, they did struggle to do some, which they ended up converting to residential. But I did just read that Fairfax County, they do have an application in for converting a office building in Maryfield to 210 live work units. It's kind of close to the hospital. That application was filed, I believe, last year. So staff is recommending approval of this as an appropriate use for not only the building, but the city center redevelopment district to get a little bit more commercial in our downtown. And the planning commission did recommend approval of the application, the waiver, on December 14th.
Okay,
I'd be happy to answer any questions, and we do have the applicant here.
okay, okay.
Have questions for him.
Thank you, Mickey. That was very good presentation. Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from the governing body?
Want me to start this end? Okay.
Yes.
Hey, good evening. Would these units be allowed to be subleased, I guess?
I would defer to the applicant on that. That is certainly their purview for the leasing the property.
Yeah. Hey,
Hi.
hey, good morning.
evening. My name is Don Stedham, and I am work for the ownership of the property. And to answer your question, you know, subletting or assignment is a provision that is allowed with landlord approval. So we have to provide oversight as to what business goes in there.
So for instance, say you got a business applicant, but then he subleases the residential aspect of it. Is that allowed?
No, sir, you can't separate the two.
Okay. So is there a definition in our comprehensive plan, a definition of what live work actually means?
No, we don't have it specifically defined.
Okay.
But as part of this application, we are referencing the information they provided in terms of the square footage of commercial versus residential for these specific units.
Okay. I mean, and what type of businesses, I guess, will be permitted? I mean, in the downtown, we got restaurants, retail, office. I would not assume a commercial kitchen space would be allowed in these units, or would there be?
No, well, first I would offer that, and I'll have to defer to Michelle a bit on this.
Sir,
but-
could you move your microphone up a little?
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank
thank you.
Whatever uses are allowed in the particular zoning district, you know, we would not get in the, I would offer maybe the way, or I don't know if it's our place to say, hey, we can't use an allowable use, you know, within this realm. Now, the live-work component, you know, in its genesis, you know, is highlighted, you know, by the, you know, this movement that is largely here to stay about working from home.
Right.
You know, and the problems from working from home are inherently, you know, lack of personal contact, you know, that those that work from home have. Also, the lack of separation between home life and work. And so we as a industry and offers a society is coming full circle back from 150 years ago when you lived above your storefront. And all of a sudden now it is becoming, you know, again, relevant to do so. So, you know, what uses are restricted? You know, we're not going to, as a landlord, and I don't know what assurance we can give you, we're not going to allow a restaurant, you know, to go in there. There's just not enough room.
Right.
There's not enough room to do takeout or, you know, anything of that nature. You know, this is intended really for the artisans, you know, of the world that, you know, need that separation of family life from their work life in order to be successful.
Okay. And would it be, or would the landlord have any restrictions on hours of operation, signage? I mean, we got residential on top, and you just want to make sure that it doesn't hinder what you have going on already with the residential aspect of it.
Well, we're already, you know, trying to do and been unsuccessful in trying to track commercial use there with the residential above.
Well, I mean, if there's any performance standards, you know, are you going to regulate noise, waste,
Yes, we have.
drop off
have,
of loading dock?
Sure. Within every single one of our leases, whether they're commercial or residential, there are, restrictions on odors, there's restriction on noise. As far as hours of operation for the commercial component,
Yeah.
that too can be, regulated, but at the same time, if you're a counselor, and the only time which you can be successful in, seeing a patient or a client, is after their work hours, it's 7 o'clock, yeah, come into our office.
Okay.
That should be okay. I mean, I don't think I'm missing anything necessarily on the hours of operations within this zoning district.
Okay. That's it for now.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
I just had a quick question for Nikki, and thank you for the presentation, the public hearing. The planning commission voted on this. Was it a unanimous, can you tell me what the vote was by the planning commission?
I believe it was unanimous.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Do you have a question?
Just kind of a follow-up. You had spoken at the planning commission a bit about your current tenant and how he was looking forward to this. Could you maybe explain that a little bit?
Sure, we do have one tenant, and he's an artist, as well, and he is, music teacher, I think, I've only seen children in his shop, but I think he also, would teach anybody that, had the desire. And he's very much looking forward to this. The cost of, just commercial space, and then to have an apartment, in addition to when, you're single and watching your budget, it just makes a whole lot of sense for this type of a venue. So he's very excited, as he's relayed to us, for this opportunity.
Okay. You're done. Comments or questions? Councilmember Carrera?
Yeah, I have a comment. I've seen where some of these have struggled. I know the development you're talking about in Herndon, I think it's Fortnightly Square where so. I assume the preference is to go all residential. If that had to happen in the future, would that be an easier conversion down the line to make it all residential if it needed to be?
Well, any conversion, is going to take time, money, and, space regardless of what you do. I mean, our intention is to make these live-work units, successful, and that is our plan A. 15 years from now, 10 years from now, if the market shifts, then we'll all adopt. But that's our intention is to make the live-work units successful now.
Thank you.
And just to add, to make it 100% residential, they would have to come back through the waiver process.
Okay.
Do you have a follow-up, Councilmember Carrera?
Oh, I do not. Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hampton?
Yep. I have questions. I always have lots of questions. The first one, I know that you mentioned you already have one potential leaser for this. Percentage-wise, how many do you have in the pipeline?
As far as potential lessees, no, we have not gone out to the market to market this yet. It's not something we would do until the subjective approvals are at least in place.
Okay. And then,
And
This is-
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Just to add a little more color, and I think with the location of our building, being on the peripheral of the downtown, and you saw the imagery of where our retail is located to kind of exacerbate the problem of, not having people walking by, our storefronts like they will, down on Manassas Drive and so forth. So once that fills up, then it'll creep further up, up the hill towards us, and we'll, be excited. But that'll take time because we won't be the first option,
Right.
For any commercial retailer.
okay. I do remember reading stuff like this. A long time ago, I used to have to do stuff in housing. So I remember hearing about the artist loft, especially in New York City, where they repurpose
Right.
a lot of the old
Exactly. And
factories.
That led to the country, quite honestly.
Yeah. My other question is probably more, I'm not exactly sure who the best person to answer this. I know that these are one bedroom. Is there an occupancy? And I don't mean by on the retail side, but housing side.
I'll defer to Calvin, but I know there certainly is square footages for the amount of people who can be in a residential unit.
Yeah, the maximum occupancy would be determined by the maximum occupancy would be determined by the property maintenance code, really. We don't typically set an occupant load for spaces that aren't assembly spaces with occupant loads greater than 50. But when you're dealing with the property maintenance code, it sets out strict occupant limits for residential facilities. So it's 70 square feet for the first person of bedroom space. And then once you get above the first person, it's 50 square feet per person of sleeping space. And when you're determining sleeping space, there's a lot of factors that come into consideration, but these have to have the combined living room, dining room space to meet the minimum requirements of the property maintenance code. They have to have a minimum 70 square foot of bedroom space for a single occupant and then meet the minimum dimensions. So yes, will these ever be capable of handling more than 2? I would say no, you just won't have the sleeping space because you can't have sleeping space egress through other sleeping space. And the configuration of these units is not going to lend itself to having, separate sleeping areas. So it's always going to be limited by probably the size, the square footage of that individual sleeping area.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure that it's not a one-bedroom, and then you have a family of 12 moving in. Okay. And then my last question, and this might be more for the city manager, but what is the impact of this upon our city resources? Because typically you like to go for commercial because it doesn't pull as much on fire and rescue, infrastructure, other parts of infrastructure, schools and such. So have we taken that into consideration as well?
You mean from a fiscal impact?
Fiscal and physical.
Discuss that in this setting.
Well, it's not, fiscal. The discussion about fiscal impact's not appropriate as land use consideration, but the number of potential students is. So I guess you can talk about it as far as the impact to schools overall, but not the fiscal impact.
Okay. In that case, then not fiscal, but physical impact.
Okay. I guess if children are part of it, then theoretically it would be adding to the school-age population. I just don't see that happening in these kinds of developments because of the structure. I don't think children are going to be involved. So that would be the only impact. It would be hard to gauge the impact of this compared to if it was a bunch of restaurants. You can make the argument there's going to be more people coming if they're restaurants versus the person who's just kind of working in the home and having a few scheduled appointments. So I don't see it as necessarily a big impact. And you're also not dealing with any commercial kitchens, which you would if you had restaurants there instead of these live-work spaces. So I don't see a bigger operational impact to staff from this beyond just reviewing and enforcing what we talked about here, the business license, right? Are they up to speed with the business license? And if they're not, then, it's a zoning violation. So it becomes an extra code enforcement site to review. And then to Calvin's point, kind of how many people are actually living there as well and any supervision of that. So that could be the operational impact here.
Okay, thank you. That's all that I had.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Amaya, do you have any questions? Okay. Any last-minute comments or questions? Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, so are these units currently unimproved dark shells right at the moment?
For the most part.
So I guess when the business or you guys were building it out, the live-work units with the loft and everything?
Yes, sir.
And then the business will do the improvements afterwards?
No, I don't believe so. I think that the condition that we're going to leave them in, and we have to submit building plans, to the building official, for review, as well. The commercial component of these, I would be surprised if a tenant had to modify the commercial area within this work-live unit such that it triggered a code review. If they do, then they'll go through the process of applying for a building permit as well.
So the landlord will do the electrical, the plumbing,
We are.
the
Yes, sir.
heating,
Yes, sir.
sprinklers if they need it,
Yes, sir.
fire marshal, all that stuff, okay. And then do we have what these units will be renting out for?
Again, we have not gone to the
Okay.
market yet until we're, at least through the subjective approval process.
Okay, this is, because we don't want to overprice or displace, not displace, but overprice the market either, right? Because, you're not going to be leasing, well, I guess it'd be per square foot, but you're not be leasing the commercial space and the residential space separately, together, and then market it like that.
I'm very focused on that, and right now, we've got 0 coming in.
Okay,
So we'll.
Well, I
we'll
mean,
not- We'll not overshoot.
okay. I have no other question, and, I mean, thank you for thinking outside the box. I mean, yeah, it's a trend nationwide. I mean, and I remember in Philadelphia, I mean, went to an art gallery, and then upstairs was his living quarters.
I mean,
And a lot of artists,
Yeah, as a cyber, I'm so not that, you
Yeah.
know, personally, I'm just very numbers and engineering. And,
Okay.
And so to meet people that have this
Yeah.
skill and creativity is, it's really cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm interested to see how this goes. Yeah.
Okay. Dean, I think you had a comment?
Yeah, I have a couple comments. First off, the property is subject to covenants. So to your point on signs, we'd want to look at the covenants that are recorded, and the city actually has the right to enforce those covenants, which is something we've been doing in the city for a while now. But secondly, when we discussed this in a meeting, there was talk about committing to not having certain kind of businesses. I don't see any commitment here saying what they're not going to do, and I would urge you to all look at what is permitted in the MUD district. Now, it's currently permitted now on the ground floor, but, you know, some of these uses, having a person living there, it may or may not be something you think is appropriate. So you might want to look in the, under MUD district in the city code. You know, in the MUD district, everything allowed in the B2 general district is permitted in there, with certain exceptions, like funeral homes are not allowed, but others are. And then in the B2 district, everything is allowed in the B1 district is, you know, so you got to look through and see exactly what's in there and then decide whether or not you want that. And if you don't, I think the applicant should go ahead and commit to not having those type of uses. You say you're not going to have restaurants, but it's permitted. You can have a restaurant in there. There's nothing in the code which would say you can't have a restaurant there. So I don't know if you can have a restaurant with just a regular stove and just a couple of tables, you know, where, you know, grandma wants to get a little extra money or something and make some pies. And so I don't know if that's okay for you. I think that's something that might be allowed under the way the ordinance is written. So I just want to throw that out there because I didn't
Like
see
a
any.
small deli?
Yeah, I mean, I could see something like that being permitted.
Okay.
Dean, I appreciate your research. Is it possible you could just send us that list?
Yeah, I actually have I've developed a list for other properties that what the MUD district allows, what the B2 district allows, what the PF district, you know, or the PUD district allows. I've done that, and I can certainly send that out to you.
That'd be helpful, because
Yeah.
I'm curious, you know, whether massages and things of that nature, just what's allowed. That'd be good
Yeah.
to see that list.
Sure. I might be able to send it out here shortly, but I might have to massage it still
Follow
some.
up?
No, that's it. Thank you,
Okay.
Dean.
Are there any final comments or questions from anyone? Okay, then let's move into public comment. Is there anyone who would like to make public comment regarding the public hearing? Okay, seeing no one and hearing no one, do we have a motion to close?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. We will be voting on this next week, is that correct? Okay, thank you. Moving on to number 6, OCM payment portal update.
All right, that's Chris Himes here, but I just want to mention to you all and to the public that this is Chris's last meeting with us. He's moving on to be a town manager in Pennsylvania, so I just wanted to thank Chris publicly for everything he's done for the city and moving us along with all of our software initiatives and everything he's done for the city. So thank you, Chris, and this is going to be his last presentation to you all.
Wow. But no pressure, right?
Congratulations.
Yeah.
And before I get started, and thank you, Lazo, Cameron, can you hear and want to do a quick comms check? He is not, but.
I can hear. Can you hear me okay?
Okay. All right, so that was about a 7-second business lag here. So unfortunately,
can you
you
hear?
informed me beforehand that we have a bit of a lag. So when we switch into the demonstration, I will pause, hand it over to you, and then whenever you just want to go, go. And then when you're done, let me know, and then we'll switch back and I will complete the rest of the citizen portals overview. All right, I can see my screen is nodding, so we're good to go.
Is the PowerPoint working? The PowerPoint, is it working?
Yeah, I'm about to pull it up here.
Chris, I'm ready to share whenever, but need to be made a presenter.
Yeah, I'll let you know when we're ready to switch over for you to share your screen and go through the demonstration.
Okay.
And we'll just see how it's going and possible, like, if he's sharing a screen and it's really, really laggy, you know, we'll try to see if we can flex, but so is the way with the IT world, all right? All right. Well, good evening, Mayor, members of the governing body. My name's Chris. I'm the Assistant City Manager and been kind of providing a lot of the planning and implementation and progress on a lot of our kind of not only internal business solutions, but our external business solutions. So tonight, and what has been a pretty roller coaster type development journey with our partner throughout this, formerly from a company called Virginia Interactive. They were based out of Richmond, Virginia. Over the last, I guess, 3 years, they've been acquired by a couple different businesses along the way, just the nature of being involved in software technology. They were acquired by a company called NIC, which is a much larger governmental payments organization. And then obviously they got acquired by another company. So it's just been like the big fish but all the time we've kept our same relationship with Virginia Interactive. So that initial reason for why we wanted to go then with some of our payment processing, advantages and incentives for both internal and external. But through that wholesale relationship upward has opened up some pathways to some more modern kind of technologies and some better business advantages for both the city internally and both the city externally for residents. So that's what the point of this brief is here today for the payment portal. Then after Cameron completes his demonstration, I figured it would make sense then to do some round of FAQs just for that. And then that'll conclude him, since he has some lagging issues, won't be too beneficial to have a quick back and forth. And then we'll hop into some of the other resident reporting portal services that we also have. That's not with NIC Virginia. So if anybody remembers our old KeyNet web payment portal, it was a pretty clunky experience overall. It's a extension of Keystone. If you can remember, very gray screen intensive. You had that initial login that was just a KeyNet login functionality for residents just to get access to their account information. And then from there, you had to kind of associate all of your residential accounts. Just because Keystone doesn't treat residents at a customer level, they treat you at an account level per account service type. So you had to bring everything together. Then you had to actually check out, and then you had to go through another payment service just to actually complete the payment. And then those payments, in this case for cards specifically, was not done with one provider, it was done with two providers. One for over-the-counter payments and then one for web-based payments. So that handoff went back to staff, and then staff had to basically sort all of that stuff out across the board. So you can imagine just extremely manual in between everything because it wasn't wholly integrated. And the whole venture here was informed by what I call some business goals, which was consolidated central payment processing with one provider that connected all of our payment types into one comprehensive portal that residents could easily access, check out as a guest, because KeyNet didn't allow you to do that. You had to have a login. And if there was any capability to lower the fee structure, or at least do an apples to apples, that was the first goal, so we were able to lower it. And then the second part was just try to see what other little odds and ends that we can get in terms of improved, I would call them modern functionality, but let's just call it basic functionalities, because KeyNet just didn't provide that. And then the last part of it was it had to work with Keystone, which was another big issue, because not everybody can easily attach to a legacy provider. And so with all this, we were able to do it, and this was something that we're able to kind of roll out what you can see today in the current portal, and just know that there is still more to be added. And one of them is not contingent upon just an NIC Virginia relationship with the city in terms of our administrative effort, but also involves the treasurer with Sandy Spring to offer some ACH type checkout services because ACH processing incurs a commercial banking type of fee structure with it, and we're still kind of working through that as well, just to make sure our banking relationship with Sandy Spring commercially stays net neutral to net positive. Some other one is just some standard IVR over the phone type payment functionality. Works in the same way as a web. You just kind of put in digitally or telephonically your account number, pulls up your record, and then you can make the payment as well. Move on to the next slide. Just to kind of give an overview of what residents get, I guess in this case, this is all based off of legacy payment portal behavior. So the goal is to improve upon all of these numbers because staff administratively we're always looking to kind of streamline the reconciliation process, and that is much more streamlined when it's through a digital web payment transaction reconciliation process. So as you can see, the most frequent type of payment made in the portals for utilities, it's the lowest payment amount, usually on an average on a monthly basis. It's the one that's always recurring, so people are more prone to just kind of want to set it and forget it. And that was another one. You didn't have that capability in KeyNet. You couldn't embed your card information for those that just want to have that and then schedule your payment, so it just makes those payments. And then the other one is because because the fee was at 3.4% roughly, and we were just subject to be a customer of that interchange fee, it lessened it lessened the willingness for people to want to make larger payments just because that fee exponentially goes up. So any way that we could relax that as much as possible, that was always going to be part of the strategy. So another one was just ease login credentials and constraints. You want to be able to just, if you don't want to have a login, you don't want to have to do all that account association, you can still do that in the new payment portal, but then easily be able to log in and just look at my account number as a guest to make the payment and get out of there. That's another added functionality, as well as by getting rid of that KeyNet front splash page. IT has to monitor all the user IDs and passwords. So we would have a heavy volume of trouble tickets coming into our IT department just to reset residents' passwords for them from KeyNet. So you can imagine just being saturated with just that volume alone. Getting rid of that altogether helps IT to do other things internally for their daily workload. And then the other one was just, well, what will really enable residents to make more transactions? It's mostly with the tax type payments, and that's more than likely going to come. It's great that we've been able to lower the fee, and we'll talk over the new fee structure here in a second, but ACH payments at $1 per transaction, which is what's pretty standard right now for the county and a lot of other residential tax payment services, at least in our region here, that's pretty market standard across the board. And it's the value add of just, $1, make a big payment, and you don't have to come to the line, especially during personal property tax season when the lines can be pretty crazy, especially towards the due date. And just avoid the line, pay $1, make your payment on whatever it is. So Cameron will provide the actual demonstration, but just for those who haven't seen it yet, this is the actual interface. So as we add different payment types, we'll have a nice little friendly, user-friendly icon. So another one was just intuitive, just user experience. I know I'm getting a utility payment because there's a picture of a faucet. I did notify the vendor that they didn't have a picture of a car. I thought that was crazy. They had like an inventory of all types of different things that they could use, but icon-wise, they had like dump trucks and everything, but didn't have a car. So I asked them to put a car on the roadmap. So we had a meeting about a car image, just so you know. So that's the level of detail that we tried to go into this. And then we're also linked our other portal services, just to talk about that differentiation. The portal was kind of constructed for the main types of payments, and most of these ones up here are systemic to Keystone. But Virginia Interactive, when it originally started, and the first portal that we went live with was for our parking ticket program. That is from Virginia Interactive's original kind of development construct. They can probably embed this into these options up here, but for just get it up and going, we just use what we have, and so we link to that page. So if you click the link here, it'll go to a somewhat differently branded, but still a Manassas Park branded payment portal. And that was another one too that we really wanted to have that was important. I think in the KeyNet it was all gray, and then you had like the little icon up in the corner. This very much lets you know that you're on a Manassas Park payment page. So sometimes when you get clicked around to a different port of a payment process, you kind of switch providers and you don't know if you're still where you need to be. This hopefully alleviates residents' concern that their payment information has switched some sort of platform and it's not secure anymore. This is a fully PCI compliant environment for all the maintenance of your payment credentials and stuff. And that was another one, the KeyNet it wasn't a PCI compliant environment, so they weren't in the business of processing payments. So the things that we're able to do is just a different value prop because we're working with two providers. One is just the merchant service interchange fee, so that never really goes away. That's just the cost of merchant operations. So to lower that as much as possible, by wholesaling that relationship, we're able to negotiate it down to 2.15. And then the dollar is for all of the tech, the development, everything. So everything that was developed for us was done at spec and based off of just future volume going through it. So it didn't cost the city a dime to kind of get all of this material up and running. So that's kind of, and then all of the iPad type equipment. When we, on the future roadmap, when we get over-the-counter transactions up and running with a different type of interface with the new ERP, you're gonna have all the digital, assuming the swipers and stuff. So all of that checkout experience is provided by Virginia Interactive at no additional cost. That's just part of our relationship. So some of the other ones that you'll be able to get out of here is just better notifications on your payments. I've already mentioned the ability to pay easily as a guest or log in and kind of do your comprehensive kind of residential account setup. Scheduling and embedding your payment data. All the different payment types, I believe we went over that. The goal is also try to find a vendor who can not only solve for the big things, but the little things as well, those kind of little knick-knack type things, because everything that we attach to this that is small in volume and kind of tough, it makes it tougher to track. So these are just things that the volume kind of goes into the same pot, and I won't get too much into the details about the administrative back end of this, but all of these transactions go to the same central reporting place. All of the transactional-based service fees, because the other benefit that we'll talk about here in a second is that Virginia Interactive, as an organization, provides fiscal agency for the city. And so what that means is they take and collect all revenues, fees, and base services. They itemize out all of the fees, and they pay off the merchant provider, which is a company called Fiserv, if you're not familiar with them. It's a pretty large national, global kind of merchant provider, and themselves, and then they deposit via an automated deposit into the aligned bank accounts for the city. So all of the utility payments are set to go straight into our utility checking account, and this wasn't done before, so we have it set up now. So when our staff is going into the reconciliation process, it's base service to base service, none of these kind of undulating fees and stuff that are a little bit harder, with a very rich, I would say, reporting detail that you get with all those kind of attributes, because everything's collected a little bit better for purpose in line with what we see in our bank. And that makes it a very easy batch reconciliation process to the max extent possible. So staff time was the big goal, was to lower staff time as well. I didn't mention it for the IBR, but it is bilingual on other types of languages as well. So you do have that Spanish-speaking option for the bulk majority of our residents as well. So kind of quickly going over the fees, and so just kind of thinking it as a value prop as if fees are a deterrent for you, it's a very small deterrent if you're making a very small payment. As you grow in size and the type of payment, it obviously becomes a very larger deterrent for you. So I wanted to kind of provide a side-by-side and kind of say like net neutral was around $75, but you got to think like anything less than that, you're talking about less than $1 per, and the older model being slightly more valuable, but that's 69 cents at the kind of lowest type of payment that we have. But as a city, we kind of operate with much larger payments. Utility monthly payments average around $150 a month for the bulk majority of our residents. Real estates, you have all the different kind of averages here. So as you can see, we're kind of in this wheelhouse down here, more so than the very micro payments. These do exist, but I think the smallest one that we see at volume is for the $40 citations that we see in our parking ticket program. So, it's roughly about 45 cents more if you pay that way, if that makes sense. So another one was just kind of bringing this all together. The value add for this is going to be when we onboard ACH payments. This is going to be associated with our tax system that's coming online, because the customer interface is going to replace the entire Keystone component of that tax billing process. So those tax portal payments will be structured through this payment portal process. So that's going to be coming sooner rather than later for our residents. So that'll be a nice bonus when we get the system up and running with the actual new payment system that we already have in place and just integrating those two together. And I believe I kind of went through all of these articles, just kind of iterate again and again. There was a lot of convolutedness with the older process, a lot of choppiness in between a litany of different providers that we had to do all of these dissimilar structured reporting detail from a resident, from an internal staff perspective, but then from a resident perspective as well. It was never a good design to have it be kind of just attached. It was very like, oh, by the way, we have to have something connected to do a payment process, but it wasn't really fully fleshed out from the get-go when we onboarded Keystone to have a provider. This one kind of, I would say, glues it together and makes it a little bit more comprehensive as an experience. We'll quickly go over maybe some of the issues that we had, because with any new platform that comes out, you're going to run into problems. You can kind of go over your testing plan and do as many iteration scenarios as possible, but until you put water through the pipes, you're never really going to know where you're having some issues. So some of them were just, I would say, I wouldn't say but people were experiencing 404 error codes. The key to that problem was they were favoriting their old KeyNet URL, and they tried to pull that back up to make their payments and getting a 404 error code, because while that service still exists, because I asked Keystone to keep the old portal at least active but deactivated, if you will, they put a redirect on it, but that redirect was only for a certain amount of time, and now officially goes to the 404 error code. So people are saying the portal site doesn't exist. That's just they need to refresh the favorite. So that's what this communications messaging will go out now that we've kind of seen a significant amount of volume go through the portal in the last month, that we feel confident that is a sustainable solution, and now we can actually get messaging out there and promote it, get some more
People were experiencing 404 error codes. The key to that problem was they were favoriting their old KeyNet URL, and they tried to pull that back up to and getting a 404 error code, because while that service still exists, if they have to keep the old portal to be active but deactivated, if you will, they put a redirect on it, and that redirect on it.
There you go. All right. Sorry about that. So that was that, and then a lot of them were within our own website. So our website, when we do the back-end kind of updates on it, it lets you know other impacted web pages, but that's for when you link actual pages. But when you just embed little hyperlinks in the text, you can't find them all. And Good on Staff are basically trying to get the word out there in every single page possible, but that led to more pages than I was expecting. So believe it, people will find a way. They found a way, and they found all things. So that was an iterative method of a lot of back and forth until I think we finally found all of them. But if anybody finds anything, just make sure they go through the same channels to report that back into the city, through our customer services line, just to kind of let us know what they're seeing and how they access it, maybe take a screenshot to make that change, and we can make that really quickly. But I believe we got all of them. Another one, which was a more kind of systemic on the Keystone side, was we had a payment date error code issue with the batch file. So it's not a true API integration. This isn't like direct point of sale information as it comes. The architecture had to be, like I said, it had to work with Keystone. Keystone doesn't have that capability. So it is a overnight batch update process. So when you make a payment, all of the front-end business kind of components of it go directly to the account, and they start going on their way. But the feedback loop between what was made in the portal to what was being repopulated back into your account balance, that's a nightly transfer. So the other thing too is when you create a Keystone bill and it's midday, that batch process will happen, everything. But if it happens, so there's like that 23-hour lag on that process as well. This was one where in that batch process, there was an issue with the data attribute related to the due date, and somehow all X thousand bills at once got set to March 29th of 2020 for some reason, so good date. But that was a pretty noticeable error that we saw right away, made the change. updated the file and everything was fine, and we haven't seen, that was actually pretty early on in the process. So that's been corrected. And interesting takeaway is, regardless of the date, people still paid their bill because the amount due was still correct, and that's how we knew it was a data issue, not a billing issue. But people see the amounts, and that let me know that some people just don't even look at the date when they make payments. So that's another interesting takeaway. Another one is people are starting to utilize the kiosks up in the treasurer's office. So if you haven't been up there and seen it, it's the same experience. It's that kind of iPad web interface that we have up there. That was intentional. Just for the meantime, we have a roadmap to get swipers and kind of that cashiering aspect of it, but we want to do that with the new systems as much as possible. So right now, the over-the-counter card transaction swiping is basically when you're done doing your account level questioning with the treasurer's window there. When you want to pay by card, your payment by card is just sidestepping over in the line using one of these two portal kiosks there and doing your checkout that way. But with that kiosk has a certain software to it, and that software has certain configurations and limitations. And one of them is if you're just on a screen that hasn't been cycled through, it'll cycle back to the home screen. So it's set to be a secured interface, so you don't leave just static data out into perpetuity and the user has to hit home or anything. It just does that for you. So we thought 30 seconds was enough, and that apparently wasn't enough. People getting used to it were just going a little bit slower. So they were getting like to the very end of the payment inputs, and all of a sudden it would cycle back to the home page, and no one had any idea why. We figured it out. 120 seconds, way more time than we need. It's still secure. It's still a time frame of having it be, how much ever time is required for people to put their information in, and then a very short period where it'll just be when you hit the receipt. That was the big thing, is when it's like, thank you for sending your transaction, that page will be there for 120 seconds, and then it'll go back default to the home thing. Or as a resident, you could just hit the home button on the screen and it'll go right back. That's training, that's just familiarity. We'll get that messaging, and the treasurer will continue to work with residents as they make those payments to make sure. So as you walk away, it's like if you're at a gas pump and it says thank you, you kind of have to sit there a little bit just to make sure it goes back. I don't know, that's just a me thing, but that's kind of the same mindset for that one. And then the last one was just for the real estate due date error. So there was an issue where the due dates were not synced up with the current billing, and basically the takeaway from that one was, as we did a lot of adjustment for the real estate due date cycles, there's certain internal pages in Keystone that you also have to make sure that you're updating, specifically ones associated with the principal and interest dates, because that dictates your billing cycle for that bill. They just got missed on that part, and that's for our back and forth with Keystone. It was a miscommunication. That was also fixed, and the bills are reflective in the portal now to be indicative of your RE1 due date with the interest and penalty date, and RE2 the same way. So you'll see your June bill alongside with your January bill, I think it is right now. And that is it. I'll, Cameron, switch it over to you here to present. And you can come off mute and let me know when you can do it. Yep.
All right, we're good?
Getting your screen view here. I'll go ahead and hide you, Cameron.
I'm sorry, Chris. Can you see the screen okay?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thanks. Cameron Trant. I'm Director of Operations for Virginia Interactive, or NIC Virginia. I'll move kind of quickly in the interest of time, but of course there's a lot here that we could demonstrate. I'm mostly going to demonstrate from a signed-in users aspect, because as a guest you can do many of the very same things. So as you can see here, the new user signed in. I have no payment, recent payments, no payment history. I won't have any bills. I won't have to pay. I have the option to pay for my bills over here as a one-time. But before I go there, I will show you that I did go ahead and add a credit card. So you have the ability to store one or multiple payment methods into the system, and that's just going to make this a little bit faster as we go through. So as we see, looking to get started, looking for your bills. It'll prompt me whether I'm looking for a personal property tax, a real estate, or a utility bill. We'll choose personal property, enter my account number, search. All right, that worked. Found the account. Please give it a nickname. We'll call it Personal Property 1. Link that account. Account was linked. Automatically see at the top, this changed out because now I have a bill that's overdue by a really long time. This is in the test system and this is only test data we're looking at. So now if I choose to pay now, I have the options within here to pay right now or pay later. If I choose pay later, I can select any date out into the future to do this. I will note that this is not automatic pay at this time. We do have that functionality and we need to do a further test cycle with the city in order to be able to enable that. That's a feature we hope to enable soon. But for now, let's pay now. Again, I have that stored credit card here. I can select or enter a new card. I'm going to go ahead and choose the one that I've stored and enter my CVV code. Which actually, again, in test, shouldn't really matter, but continue. Once again, one last chance to review the charges. It's my payment method, the credit card information. I'm paying my personal property with this reference number, which is my account number. The total amount was $563.61. Here's the fees for processing that total. You can see privacy policy, terms of use. I hit submit payment. And here we go. We have a confirmation screen. The same receipt will be emailed me to the email address. I can print this page or I can also mail it off to somebody else if I wanted to send it or send it to somebody else. Moving forward, so for real estate tax, well, actually, we'll pause real quick. See, first of all my bills, current open bills that I've linked are paid. Here's my recent payment. I can see the history, and that will keep all the history for all payments made through the portal while somebody is signed in. We are not able to import historical before this portal launched, and it's a benefit of being signed in to keep the history. But let's go ahead and do a real estate tax. $2,015. So again, here's a customer that has multiple properties on their account. They can select to pay for one of them, or they can select to pay for all of them in one single transaction. So I can add to cart. We use add to cart. That just allows me to say, okay, I want to pay my real estate, but I also have a utility. I want to do all those together. Or we can just, again, go through the pay now. I'll do this quickly since we've already went through all this. Again, here's my receipt page, everything, options just to return back to payments. And then last but not least, let's do a utility bill. Utility bill payment, so customer number and service number. Oop, I messed something up there, so let me try this again. There we go. Mountain Dew, information on the property I'm paying, so I know whether verify it's the same spot, same place. Here, I will, just to demonstrate real quick, add something to the cart so I can check out or return the payments. Let's say I'm a landlord and I have multiple places. If I want to do another utility bill, just for a number. All right, add to cart. Now I have two things in my cart. Again, same sort of icon up here that many people are used to on e-commerce sites. Go ahead and check out. I'm going to now finish that, do the same just to complete the payment. All right. So there we go. Now we have all the items we just paid for. I can view them all. I can get more details based on them. I can reprint myself a receipt if I need it. So all of this information is stored here as a logged in user. And as we noted, that as we continue to come back and add new features and functionality to this, they will be tested with the city, and we will continue to roll out new features throughout the rest of this year. I'm going to pause there and ask any questions or any concerns, but let's try to give you a real quick overview of some of the functionality.
Ready for questions?
I think for the in-the-moment payment-related stuff, yes, because the other ones are going to be about kind of community maintenance type reporting and code reporting, which are unrelated to Cameron and stuff, so this will allow him to drop off after we're done with the questions. So, Mayor, if you want to ask any questions or anybody has any.
Okay. Any comments or questions?
I have one question. The SSL certificate, does that reside on the city from the city website, or is that through the payment portal? The SSL certificate for the payment, the SSL, the HTTPS. So
Cameron, did you get that?
what is the liability insurance on the SSL?
It was difficult to hear. I'm sorry.
The SSL certificate on the HTTPS, secure the SSL cert. I assume you got the reverse on to ensure the payment process in case it gets stuck in between. Is that responsible of the city, or is that on the payment portal to the vendor?
I am not the tech resource, so I don't want to say something incorrect. I will say that the whole system, the whole process is SOC 2 compliant, right? The hosting is typically handled by internal resources with the SSL certificates, but we work in conjunction with your IT department. So we do security testing, we do accessibility testing, we do load balance testing, and like I said, the portal is one thing, which is the hosted environment, and then it switches over into the NIC payment networks, which is the fully secure, hosted by the corporate level, PCI compliant, et cetera.
Okay, thank you.
Follow up?
And I'd be happy to get you a potentially better answer if that would help, or if you need further clarification.
What the amount is for the liability insurance on the SSL cert, because I know some of them go for $500,000 up to like 20 million in case there's.
The bulk majority of everything that you're referring to is from my original value conversation with the president of the company Virginia Interactive, with Virginia Interactive. So there was one time where we had to serve as a merchant of record versus having them serve as the merchant of record, and that carried certain level of accreditation criteria that you had to comply with as a city. That was actually pushed back to have them, and that carried that burden load back towards Virginia Interactive. So to answer your question, that is provided by Virginia.
It is provided by them.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Amaya?
Yes, question. Will there be a availability to pay business licenses through the portal?
So this is what current state is reflective of. When we onboard a vanity will basically be, so what you're seeing right now is kind of a product of a front-end splash page solution with different checkout functionalities, but when we integrate a vanity has a great customer tax portal, so there will be some overlap between when the NIC Virginia payment portal will reside and when that customer portal aspect of a vanity ends. And so to answer your question, that is still kind of in flux, but they will be connected and there will be, trying to think of the best way to put it, a full integration in there between that. And that'll be the same thing for utilities as well. But I guess that's to be determined, I guess is probably the best way to
Okay.
answer that one.
Yes, ma'am.
How would a customer set up their ACH payment? Would it be through the portal or through their bank?
It would be using their bank information inside the portal. So same thing you would do, you get your routing number and your whatever account number, and it would basically be structured through the actual payment portal as a payment option type. So that input entry information would be there. You'd see like the little example of a check off the side with like the red kind of square or rectangle showing you which numbers to put in. Very basic functionality from what they provide. We just have to get that up and running because it's how we accept that information from them is a different type of processing on the banking side. So right now, card payments are a different type of transaction. ACHs go through a different route.
Okay, so it's not set up yet.
It's not set up yet. No, we have to get that solidified with SandSpring first before we can go forward. It's in the post acceptance of requirements phase, and now it's in just figuring out what it exactly means to actually run that service.
Okay, thanks.
Councilmember Moore?
Yes. My question is, when you're making, let's say, a utility payment, in his example today, it seems like he was putting in an account number. Do you have to use an account number, or can you search by address? Let's say you come to the office and you forget your bill, your account number. Most people don't have those memorized.
So when we put in what information criteria required to do the search and query in the batch file, Patty's request was to have account and service number as the two fold identifiers. There was some, I would have to go back to her to ask specifically what she was opposed to having address in terms of some discontinuities of that information. So this one is the two numbers associated for that, like they stay locally with that parcel, so they're always attached to that. So it's better, I guess, to have that granular information for account and service number.
I guess my question is the system able to do both, to do the account and do the address?
You can search on any data attribute that the system provides, they can come up with things. So this is just what we laid forward as a staff for internal requirements for it.
Okay.
Yep.
Councilmember Javert?
Yeah, just to piggyback off of Councilmember Moore's, I mean, I pay online, and I don't remember my account number.
Yeah.
I don't even open the water bill. I don't even know where it is. So when the new one rolled out, I was searching past, like from my trash like 3 months ago, just to find my account number to pay the bill. So I think there needs to be both features on there.
And we can definitely take that information back and just see what that, but when we were going to set this up, we wanted to make sure that the treasurer was kind of like dictating the actual requirements based off of her comfort level initially, and then we could definitely flex to it. But the good news is the portal can flex to anything, and that's like a pretty quick change because we get that batch file with all of that detail. It just has to hone in on what that search requirement.
But once you create your account and link it to the accounts, that information is there
It is in there.
forever.
Yeah,
So you don't
you'll
have
see
to
it in the
remember it.
billing.
It's just
every
one
single
time.
time you don't-
Every time it's there. It's there now in the future. It's
Okay.
all your accounts now are linked to your profile, your personal property, your
Once you put it in
utility.
once.
Once you put it in once, yeah. So next time you get a bill, make sure to type in the account number and add it to your account.
And then you can just log in with a password.
Exactly.
That's what we're hoping to move more to is incentivizing people to have like a sign-in
Yeah.
associated accounts and kind of streamline the user experience a little bit more so.
It kind of works like the way DMV does, where you have to put your title number and then your last 4 digits of your VIN. So
Yeah.
same thing. You can't really search under your name.
Oh, yeah.
So it's kind of like the same system.
But yeah, I mean, I could look at my registration or
Exactly. You still have to look at your
But-
paper.
the bill I get electronic. My next question is on the demo aspect of it. Were you able to see a full itemized bill?
So you're able to pull in.
Or the usage of the meter?
Yeah, so that usage, it's called interval data or consumption data. That is not a part of it. That is a function of the provider of the information. So that is a keystone limitation. So we tried to find a way that you could actually PDF insert your
Right.
keystone bill into there.
Mhm.
There were some issues with that. So like this was an apples to apples. We didn't currently have that, but that is very much a part of the next utility billing system. We'll have that information, and literally it's going to be where we want the resident to have that information. Does it make more sense to have it in like the consumption view and then you check out from there and that'll go here, or do you want it to be all within here and you just get import information from there and you see everything? The systems can do both, so it's literally just what is the easiest configuration and the more, I would say, resilient business process. But the endpoint will be the same. You'll be able to see all your consumption information and make an easy payment.
Okay. And then on the new rate is 215% plus the $1. What's the plus the $1 for?
That is for,
The ACH?
missed that. It's for the actual tech support, everything in and of itself. So not only are we just getting the portal service, we're getting the fiscal agency of Virginia Interactive. They're doing a lot of administrative processing for us. So that's a base transaction base rate fee.
So total is basically 315.
No, if the bill was $100 even, then it would be 315, but it's 2.15% of whatever their bill is plus $1.
Oh, I see.
That's why it ends up being far below the current 3.4%. The higher you go, so above $75, that's where you start seeing the savings.
Yeah.
And then below that, it's marginally more. It's marginally more from 75 and below in your payments.
Yeah.
So the burden of it is not necessarily that cumbersome for small payments to do it. We thought about trying to prevent this for our Parks and Recreation Department, but they have much more higher volume of small payments, and that's where we're like, yeah, it
Not
doesn't
gonna
really
make
make a
sense,
whole lot of
yeah.
sense for them.
Yeah.
But for us, it made a lot more sense just because I don't have the information up there. We did a 5-year payment analysis, and pretty much year over year, the payment averages are pretty much the same, and usage of the portal itself too.
So at the moment, we could take credit card, debit card, future ACH payments, but how about like, Apple Pay, Google Pay,
We
PayPal?
do that, we just have to have that set up, but it will accept.
So that'll
all
be,
of
that's in the
those.
roadmap too.
Bitcoin.
Yeah, Bitcoin.
Whole different conversation, that's a dean conversation. So,
And then my last question is, would this payment portal have like a mobile app?
So it is kind of, responsive design, so it's not necessarily app-based,
Okay.
but if you pulled it up on your phone, it would look like an app kind of functionality. It's all responsive design from a UX standpoint, user experience. So there are other things that we could possibly look down the road at having like a governmental Manassas Park app where we can kind of structure in different types of functionalities. Payments would be part of that, but to answer your question, that's possible. We just have to think about what we would want in that app.
And then the payment portal, once your account set up and everything, if you choose to have electronic billing versus paper billing, if you choose electronic, will they be sending reminders to your email?
Yes, so anything that you send in informationally into there, you'll get email notifications, although I don't think we have a business rule right now that automatically opts out paper billing statements coming from the treasurer's office. So that would have to be worked on in terms of if you just want electronic billing notifications from here, this will just let you know that you have a system bill due.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what that is for. But future state, when it's actually connected to an actual, like, a little more modern utility billing platform or tax platform, yes, you can quote unquote opt out and
Opt
go
out,
green. And the city can market different, incentives to help that as well if you, choose to do so. So everyone can be as digital green as possible.
Thank you.
Follow up? We had a comment come in over YouTube from Mr. Mike Smith. He states, "It would be very helpful to be able to search by address for online bill pay. This would also circumvent issues where, for example, the bills get mailed late."
And we'll take that offline and have that staff discussion.
Sure.
And
Yeah. I have
it's
used it
feasible.
already, and it works great.
Well, that's
Yeah.
good.
I
Thank
love
you.
the portal, yeah, that's super.
The fear of anything new like this is it's sensitivity around because it's people's payment data. So you want to make sure that it's working.
Yeah.
And not to say we can't do that, but I think just thinking for Patty, I think the problem is, especially with utility bills, is that the address can be associated with multiple people, including the owner and the tenant as well. So that's why, that's my guess why she wants account numbers, because the account number is assigned to the individual, where the address can be assigned to multiple individuals in the system.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay.
Thank you, yeah, that is it.
Any other comments or questions before Chris moves on?
Can there be a way to search it online, put your address and what account number you have?
Well, to give you the account options well, the thing is now you're releasing the account information of the other person, right? So if you're the owner and now the tenant's looking for the address and now he has your owner account information. Now, so let us think through that a little bit more though, yeah.
Go ahead.
All right, I will move into the other parts, but Cameron, you are free to drop. Thank you for the support. All right, I'll quickly go through these. These are just kind of, we're trying to get the word out more and more and more of different touch points that you can have with city staff in terms of reporting on community maintenance type issues from both the public works or even a code enforcement type infraction. And these are provided from our two systems. They're now jointly called Brightly. It was former Dude Solutions, but the Asset Essentials program for our asset management and public works platform, and SmartGov are the two programs for our SmartGov being for our building inspections, code, and permitting platform as well. It's kind of like two case management systems. And with that, they provide two, this is going to be really clunky and awkward, provide two reporting portal aspects of their platforms. And we'll go through those right now. So the easiest way to get there, there's a bunch of different routes you can take, but the easiest one is on our quick links profile, which also has our pay component to it as well. It's just hit on the report. You can pull up the kind of links here and go through the quick process flow to get to the reporting page. So this is what I consider to be the most intuitive way to submit information to the city is a map. Of course, there's a disclaimer here. A map-based interface, drop a pin, fill out a quick work request. Workflows are maybe like 1 to 2 steps. You can upload a photo if you have it on your mobile phone at the time. And this information goes straight to our public works department, our superintendent and Alan. They get these, I was a city engineer, all of these work requests. And we're still trying to work on a couple different enhancements to this process, maybe some more specific details required. Specifically, when a resident submits something right now, it doesn't ask you for your point of contact information, so it's nice to be able to follow up with a resident and say, thank you, here's the fix. But go wherever you will, so I'll just drop a quick point here. You'll get a create work request, and then here it pulls up, I'm gonna block that. And basically, it's just a list of drop-down of work categories. So just whatever work category that you might think, doesn't have to be right, just what you think the perception of the problem is. This just gets a data point in the system, and then staff can kind of work with you. Granted, it's through the system. When I said it's for point of contact, that's like Alan's ability to just call you on his phone and be able to give you that feedback if they need it and get somebody out there. So this also creates a case that needs to be open and activated. So if you just want to spam the portal, that's one thing, but we will basically not act on it because we see it as a non-valid entry. So I'll just do a quick, let's say, pavement, say there's a pothole here, and basically if you just want to put in some sort of like, hey, my address here has a big pothole in it, and you want to submit a photo. The goal here was to basically make it as basic as possible, just to encourage use of it. If you wanted to click on here, you can both upload a photo, or if you're on your phone, it just goes to your image library on your phone as well, and then submit the work request. I won't do this right now because it's a test thing, so this will actually go to them, and they'll wonder what the pothole is for wherever we're going to be putting it. But that's basically the 3-step process. It's very intuitive. And like I said, anything that we can do that's map-based is probably the best route possible for all reporting purposes. And that leads me to the next part, which is for our code part. SmartGov is a solid case management system, but when it came to resident, kind of same types of thing. Funny, same company provider, different portal experience. I've been having this conversation with them for a while. They have it, quote unquote, on their long-term roadmap, but not anytime soon. So we are seeking different options to it. But if you go to the code enforcement part of it, it's going to bring you to a little bit more basic screen here. So This screen is nice when you sign in and you have an account, you're doing a building permit, you'll get all of your fees due and all of your account level information. But from here, we just want to report a concern. So that's basically all we're going to do is fill out this workflow. And it's basically just whatever type of information that you want to provide. If you notice the red asterisk, it means it's required in order to fill it out. You see here, though, it's not necessarily required to fill out these items, so I can submit a work request based off of saying pothole, so it's a little too open for my personal liking, but we're still working with them to kind of fix some of these. They consider them more custom configurations, so we're working on figuring out a more tested solution, but it'll accept all of your information. Oh, actually, it is making me do it. Good, maybe they got that part. You would put this in, and then it would ask for you to, next step, create like a 4-digit PIN. That's like a PIN that you can go back and search on your feed, on your request. And that's how we kind of talk back and forth with the residents as well. This information isn't auto-populated into the case management in the same way. It has to be kind of accepted and pulled in as a valid complaint or whatever it is in the community. But like I said, it's not map-based, so we're trying to figure out a different kind of structure for that. One of them is a functionality called Citizen Problem Reporter. It's a free app that we have with our GIS relationship with Esri right now. It's just kind of the same thing you saw in the asset management tool. You just design little fillable workflows on a map saying drop a pin type functionality, and the data transfer would be the exact same. So something that's on the chart for us as a staff to continue working on this spring.
And Chris, and they don't the resident doesn't have to put their personal information here or contact information.
They do not.
Yeah, so we've heard concerns from residents. They don't feel comfortable giving their information. You can submit your concern so it gets to the city without putting your personal information.
Like stay anonymous.
Can the city and the state zip code be removed? 'Cause isn't that already Manassas Park? On that form there, can the city, the state, and the zip code, I mean, can that be removed? Because isn't that would be Manassas Park always, right?
In essence, yes, but this is their products and things, so we couldn't.
Oh, it doesn't allow you to edit or remove?
They won't do any real kind of custom configuration on these screens.
Oh.
That was kind of the issue with them. It's very rigid with getting this part of their component. So it's like 95, 96% of the software is great, and then you get to this point, it's like the one sticking point, and so you get hung up on the smallest part of their system. But I do believe that if we pivot to the GIS-based function and then be able to do the same delivery of information to SmartGov, that's you're getting kind of the best of both worlds at that point. And then, like I said, we own that application, so it's already something that we have. We just have to configure it and turn it on.
Okay.
Any questions about that? These are just, want to get the word out there to people.
Yeah. Comments or questions? No?
So just share these links with residents that have questions on where they can report things, and this is the best way because there's somebody monitoring it and pulling in this data to be able to do actionable work on it as well and give feedback. So it's a great customer service aspect as well.
And just to keep promoting our new customer service division, if people prefer to talk to someone, we do have people. So I showed you last time how to get in touch with someone and talk with someone physically about over the phone or come in person and chat if you want to interact with someone and not a computer.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
that's it.
Are you done?
Oh, I am done. If
Oh,
you have any more
okay.
questions, feel free.
I thought
can
maybe you
talk
had
all
more
night.
to say. Chris, thank you. That was a great presentation, and thank you for shepherding along the ERP system and getting us to a point where we're going to be very successful. And best of luck in your new location.
Yes, if you're ever in, if you're ever in southeastern Chester County, Pennsylvania, it's a location called New Garden Township. So it's a Pennsylvania township kind of base of government. So
Yeah,
little
a
different.
lovely area up there.
Yeah, it was a great amenity
Really
just to
nice.
be associated in that region. I liked it a lot, so
Yeah.
it was grateful. for it.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Good luck. Thank you. Okay, moving on to 6B. 6B is rules and procedures.
We're skipping that.
Governing body input. That would be Dean.
Yeah, I had originally put this on here anticipating providing the draft to you folks. I got it done a little early, and so I sent it out yesterday, and I've gotten some comments back. We don't necessarily have to go over it tonight, as long as you guys give me your feedback. I'd like to get it if I could by, say, Thursday, close the business Thursday, just so we can get it all finalized on the agenda for next week. The goal is to try to get that approved early on, because we do have a closed meeting that night, and I think there was some issues. We wanted to get some rules in place for that.
Okay, okay. Any comments or questions for city attorney while we're here? Anything? Okay. Well, provide input to Dean by Thursday.
Yes, please.
Okay, super.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Okay, moving on to consent agenda. Consent agenda consists of approval of the minutes of December 6th and December 13th, 2022, appointment of Jeanette Rischel to represent the city on the Potomac and Rappahannock Transportation Authority, with Alana Mensing to serve as the first alternate and Daryl Moore to serve as the second alternate. Appointment of Alana Mensing to represent the city on the Virginia Railway Express Operations Board, with Daryl Moore to serve as the first alternate. That the governing body approve and authorize the city manager to sign a new engagement letter with the law offices of Michael Pignon to continue providing city prosecutor services as presented and subject to final city attorney review. And approval and authorization for city attorney to sign any necessary documents, for city manager to sign any necessary documents for the purchase of Dell desktops at a cost not to exceed $53,550, subject to final review by city attorney.
Moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes.
I need to abstain on the minutes of December 13th.
Okay.
December
Councilmember
13th.
Moore abstains from the minutes on December 13th.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to unfinished business, tenant improvement program policy.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the governing body. So just like Chris is moving on, so is our Economic Development Coordinator, Lamar Hoy. So I did want to thank him as well for everything he's done for the city. Not sure if he'll be back next week. I don't know what the agenda looks like for next week, but want to thank him for everything, especially the voucher program. That was a huge undertaking and a huge success as well. So thank you, Lamar. But as part of his last assignment was to wrap up this tenant improvement tenant improvement incentive program utilizing ARPA funding. We briefed this to you all back in the fall. The directive was for us to go back and move forward and develop a policy for your all's review so that we can make the next step of now advertising this program, and then as we find those who are applying for this, again, we'll do a separate agreement with them as well with the city attorney review to provide the tenant improvement for negatively impacted businesses for COVID-19 as was allowed by the ARPA final rule. Just one change that I wanted to make from what you had in your packet, and then I'll let Lamar say a few words, then we'll open up to any questions. I highlighted it here, but I wanted to remove from eligible expenses architectural interior design permitting fees. It slipped when I was reviewing it before, but I want to have that flexibility to move off of a business if they're dragging their feet. And so, I don't know why this keeps popping up. We don't want to pay for any of this, and then we want to move forward. I want them to actually start breaking ground, starting construction before we start providing any reimbursements, because I would hate to reimburse them for architecture, and we spend a lot of money there, and then they just pull out or something else changes. So I do recommend that we eliminate this from the policy. And I'll turn it over to Lamar, see if he has anything to add, and then we'll open up to any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Paco. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, guests, and residents watching. This is bittersweet, but we have a great program to look at here. I'm just going to touch base very briefly on some key points of information. 1 second. Sorry. I was looking for the map, sorry, the appendix. I wanted to start off by just focusing on, yeah.
You want the next slide?
I did. Just wanted to just show them the areas. All right, thank you. All right, there we go. I just wanted to bring this map out briefly to go ahead and start off. As I start to talk, I kind of wanted you to be able to envision the areas that we're referencing here. So the areas that we're specifically referring to are Park 170 Building A, Park 170 Building B, the first floor level here in this building, City Hall Building A, A1 and then A2. So A1 being where we have the full service restaurant, and then A2 being where we're projecting for a coffee shop. And then we have Building C, the building right next door, and then we're also looking for the expected theater development. And so what we're looking at with each of these, one second. All right. So as we're looking at each of those particular areas, it's a total square footage of 100,962 square feet. And so we're actually applying we're expecting that we'll be able to provide assistance up to $25 per square foot. And so it's approximately about $2.5 million that we're looking at in regards of utilizing if we were to reach maximum expenditure on this program. There was a comment earlier mentioned that once we start looking at square footages for spaces, you're taking out hallways and things of that nature. And so I do expect that we may not actually max out on this program. But again, I wanted to start off showing you where we're looking at. Again, the intent is that if a business is currently located in the state, or they're working to come to this area and locate in the Park Central area, then they would qualify for this. Very simply, we went over last time what type of documentation they would use in regards for applying for this program. And I didn't want to go too far into what we already spoke about, but I would like to know if there's any questions. I know, Mr. Carrera, you're new, so I know you may have some questions about the program, but I kind of just wanted to turn it over to that.
I appreciate it. I followed a little bit about it, so thank you.
Okay. I just wonder if there were any questions. I know we've talked a lot about it, but I'd like to kind of answer the questions from the last time.
Councilmember Hampton?
Yeah, just a quick reminder, because folks at home probably weren't watching. We talked about this is all ARPA funds, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Right, so it's no cost to the residents.
Right, there's no financial impact to the residents at all.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it was no city tax money, and it was a clear part of the legislation, the goal of Congress for us to help with the economic revival. Step one was a voucher program to help our restaurants, and this is step two.
Okay, thank you. Follow-up down. Councilmember Amaya, questions? Yes, ma'am.
I just want to clarify, existing businesses within the Park Central Tourism Zone, Girani is not existing because they haven't moved in yet, so they would still be eligible?
They would, yes.
Okay, great.
No, I'm excited about the program, Lamar, and I appreciate, sorry to see you leave, but I understand greener pastures and all that good stuff. When will this program start? We'll be able to, as far as marketing and telling people, we have this $2-point-something million available.
As soon as you guys approve the policy.
Yeah,
After
as soon as
tonight,
you.
we'll start.
As
Okay,
soon as
very
you
good.
approve it, what I'd like to do before I exit would start to be able to put together the marketing information and the tools and things of that nature. So tenants that would want to apply, they can get a nice, easy packet that has all the information in it. If I can find a way to make it electronic so they don't even have to come down here to get it. But since I won't be here, I'm expecting that they will be turning these applications in directly to Mr. Palco. And essentially, as long as they follow all of the requirements in their application process, we expect it should be an easy approval.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay.
Pleasure.
Councilmember Javed, do you have any questions?
Yes, hi, Lamar. Yeah, I mean, good to go off that point, I think the landlords need to advertise as well, like tenant assistance, available.
What we want to be careful with is we're offering up to $25 per square foot. I want to make sure that if we are having the landlords promote it, that they are phrasing it exactly that way. So that we're not setting an improper expectation.
Not just that, so the landlords are aware of this,
Yeah.
but we don't want this to replace existing TI that they're providing.
Right.
We're making it clear that they're not going to reduce their standard tenant improvement and make up for it this way.
No, yeah, that's a good point. I just said that because they have a broader reach than we do as a city.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's why-
They're looking forward to this
Right.
program. I think
Okay.
it's part of their vision for being able to execute leases.
And then on the ineligible expenses, should we add any utility costs? Because, I mean, it just says work capital, inventory expenses, salary,
Ineligible or eligible? You're saying?
ineligible.
So you want utility costs not be eligible,
Right.
just to be clear?
'Cause, I mean, we shouldn't be paying for deposits and utilities.
Okay.
That's just my opinion. I don't know how the body thinks. but-
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that, and that makes sense.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Whereabouts is it?
So for the ineligible section, remember I wanted to add architectural, interior. We currently have moving expenses, in-kind work. Councilmember Javed wants to add any utility deposits as well are not eligible for tenant improvement.
Okay, that's fine.
And that's it. Yeah.
Okay.
Are we all in agreement about removing the architectural? Are we all consensus? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll make the note to add the remove utility deposits as well.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. Okay, and there are two motions for this, and City Attorney, I'm assuming that the removal and addition will be covered by as presented?
Yes, that would be, so you wanted to remove not only the utility deposits, but utility bills as well, right?
I want to add, yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
you remove them from being eligible, but put them in the ineligible. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I just
Exactly.
wanted to
Yeah.
clarify that because someone had said just the deposit.
Deposits and the bills, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
That will be covered by as presented.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Well, if there's no more questions or comments, we'll go ahead. We have two motions that the governing body approve the ARPA Park Central Tenant Improvement Program Assistance Policy as presented and subject to final review by city attorney.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Second is that the governing body authorize the city manager to implement the ARPA Park Central Tenant Improvement Assistance Program at a cost not to exceed $2,524,050 in ARPA funds.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you very much. We wish you the very best of luck.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure being here. It is absolutely bittersweet, but, I hope that you'll see me. I will continue to be in this area, and I hope to see each and every one of you on the streets.
All right.
Yeah, take care of yourself.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, moving. Okay. Moving on to nine.
Your entry is not valid.
What was that? Strange. Okay. Moving on to 9A, we have appointment of the vice mayor.
Madam Mayor?
Is there any, who's, Alana?
I would be honored to be considered to continue in
Okay,
this role.
to continue your service as vice mayor.
Yes.
Okay.
With that, I'd like to nominate and make a motion that we appoint Councilmember Mensing as our vice mayor.
Okay. Do we have a
Make a
second?
motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to 9B, ordinance to extend penalty date for real estate property taxes.
Yes, this was prepared because we had some glitches with our software system, which meant that many people did not get their bills with the customary 30 days that's usually planned. So they get their bill, they have 30 days to pay it. All this does, it doesn't change the due date. It just says that penalties and interest won't be implemented until February 1st. So as long as it's paid by the end of January, they won't see penalties and interest on that amount. So they may, if they already have delinquent amounts, that will still accrue and it won't be affected, but this is just on this amount.
Is that clear? Any clarification needed by anyone? Okay. Staff recommended motion is that the governing body adopt an ordinance to extend the date penalties are imposed and interest accrues for delinquent real estate property taxes accruing for the first half of tax year 2023 to February 1st, 2023, as presented.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. 9C, Keep the Park Beautiful, appointment of advisory committee. Welcome, Yvette.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Yvette Monet. I'm the housing coordinator. On the December 13th, 2022 governing body meeting, the governing body authorized for city staff to apply to be an affiliate of Keep America Beautiful program. And the next step into that process is to appoint an advisory committee.
Yeah, so tonight we have a resolution that would establish the committee, and then you guys would appoint the members as well.
And you have a new resolution before you that's different than the one in the packet.
Has everybody taken a look at the new resolution? Could you point out the additions?
Yes, so it states that it's a standing committee, so it's just going to continue indefinitely until it's no longer needed. It also just says that the committee will brief the governing body quarterly, and it lists the members, which it previously had done, and it lists the staggered terms, which it previously had done as well. It's just that historically, when we create committees, we have certain information that would be in the resolution that wasn't in the previous one that was in the packet. This just adds those few things.
Thank you, Dean.
You're
And I
welcome.
think we need to thank the 4 folks who are willing to step up and do this. So thanks to Councilmember Hampton, Councilmember Amaya, Maria Sywak, and Lori Mean. Thank you very much, folks. If there are no comments or questions?
Yeah, I
Yes,
just
go ahead.
have one. For the resolution for, I guess, Councilmember Hampton and Maya, expiration date should align with their election date, or is that?
Yeah, that was my question.
Well, I asked that question with Councilmember Hampton, and so the idea would be that they would just become citizen members
Oh.
if they don't serve on the council. So there's no requirement for them to be council members.
Okay, that's fine.
Is
Yeah.
everybody good?
I'm smart every now and then.
Okay, the staff recommended motion is that the governing body adopt the resolution appointing members of the Keep the Park Beautiful Advisory Committee as presented and subject to final city attorney review.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, 9D, FY '24 budget calendar and guidance to city manager.
Okay, good evening. First off, forgot to welcome Councilmember Carrera. Welcome back. Good to see a familiar face. And then congratulations to Vice Mayor Mensing for your selection again as Vice Mayor. Looking forward to seeing your comments next week at the at the event we have down in Richmond. So for this agenda item, the FY24 budget schedule, this is your time to really decide how you want us to present the budget, how much you want to discuss the budget, how many meetings do we need, how do you want that to flow. I pretty much kept this standard for how we've had this the last few years. The only real change I made was that just looking for your priorities a little bit earlier this year, just so that we can have time to discuss them in February and try to finalize them by the end of February, so that when March is really when I start finalizing the budget. So I'd like to have your priorities a little bit earlier this year, just to give more time to integrate that into the budget planning, because in February I'm meeting with all the departments, so it'd be nice to get your priorities while I'm getting the departmental requests at the same time, and then synthesize everything in March.
What would be the drop dead date that you would prefer?
February 3rd.
February 3rd?
Yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay.
And that way I can start assembling it, and then February 7th and February 21 would be the governing body meetings. We'd do work sessions at those times for you guys to discuss those priorities. I'd kind of just put everything that you guys sent me onto one sheet so you can see it, and you guys can discuss at that time, what needs to be removed, what needs to be added, and then discuss kind of make your arguments for why certain things should be priorities, and then you guys would do fill out the surveys so that I can kind of tally it up.
Can you send us our surveys from last year so that we can
Sure.
review and see what we did then?
Yeah.
See gauge the progress in our own minds, that type of thing.
Okay. Yep.
Thank you, thank
And
you. Yes, ma'am.
I have a suggestion for when we have the work sessions. We actually don't do it up here. We actually have like a square with the tables where we sit around it and where we can actually look at one another and actually have conversations, actual true work session versus something where we sit up here. I find that works, I found in my career that works better.
Are we able to have microphones at the table?
We We have limited number. I mean, I guess we can pass them around
Okay.
as someone wants to speak. So we have one,
That
two,
would
how many do we
work.
have? We got 6. So everyone should have it, and just maybe a couple council members
Have to
just
buddy
buddy
up.
up. Yeah.
Sure.
Mhm.
The only recommendation I would make was done in the past, I think, Mayor, when you and I were here, watching the budget meetings last year, they seem to be very long and cumbersome. I would hope that you would present the budget, and then there'd be a Q&A session. We would hear your budget presentation, then maybe a work session, and then just have a Q&A session with the department, and not put the burden on the department heads to present their own budget, that you would do that. And most other jurisdictions I've seen, they do that, and try to streamline it somewhat.
Yeah, I think early on what we wanted to do was be transparent, because the early budgets I adopted or that I inherited here were wrong. Like the numbers were wrong and everything else, and I really asked the departments to kind of step up. So I wanted to provide all the information to the governing body and residents so that we were being fully transparent. But it's easier for us if you guys just want to do Q&A sessions. That's an easier workload for the staff. But that's your all's discretion for how much information you want to be presented to you all and what you feel the residents need as well. But that's up to you all.
Madam Mayor.
I think we should err on the side of transparency and the most information that we can provide for the public, however that would be presented. That's just my personal take.
Yeah, the concern that I have is the CIP budget and going over the 5-year CIP. So talking about projects that are 3, 4, 5, 6 years in the road, it just seems, to Councilman Carrera's point, cumbersome. So maybe we do the first 3 years, or maybe the first 2 years, but 5 years of a CIP. I mean, the budget should be, it's printed, it's available for the public, it's there, but to sit here and talk about something that's 6 years out.
So what I can do,
cumbersome.
what I can do with that when we get to the CIP presentation, we can still provide you the slide deck that has every project,
That
but
sounds
I
great.
just summarize what I'm asking for FY24,
Amen.
what's actually going to be actionable, if that makes more sense.
It
Because
does.
under state law, you're required to do a 5-year.
Correct.
But if you could just focus on the first year and obviously have a wish, but,
Yeah.
you know.
The 5 years is the plan. The first year is what you guys will actually appropriate as well, so that's more important. We review the CIP also with the Planning Commission, so to avoid redundancy, you can just watch that meeting where we do present everything, and residents can access that, unless you want that for the Planning Commission.
I love that.
I like that
Condense it
idea.
at the planning commission
No,
as
go in
well?
great detail. on the planning commission.
Then come to the meeting
yeah.
and sit here.
We can email the Planning Commission. We can take that tack this year, then if the Planning Commission wants to go over more projects at that meeting, they could just ask us and we'll go over it. But we'll plan to just present FY24. I'll give the overview still.
Yes.
Across the 5 years for where we're headed.
Yeah.
And I always do across 10 years anyways, but I'll show you kind of where we're headed for the CIP, for kind of one slide synopsis, and then just show we'll go over the projects for FY24. And then if you have any questions on any of the future projects, we can open it up to that.
Perfect.
Perfect.
So, I mean, does everyone, I see you two agreeing with that, but does everyone agree with that?
Sounds fine.
That's fine.
Fine,
That's
okay.
fine. Yes, ma'am.
I have another question. Is there an economist that we can have come in and just give us a brief update of their projections of what's going to happen in the next 12 months?
Yeah, I can reach out. There's one from, I want to say George Mason, who sends out I haven't seen anything from him in over a year, but let me dig through my files and see if I can't reach back out and see if he can at least give us some data that I can present to you all, but I'll go ahead and do that. If
And the
Keith, can you,
reason-
or Kelly, can you guys
And the reason
note
why
that
I'm
down?
asking for my other board members, the reason why I'm asking about this is back in the day when I worked for the Housing Association, we had this once a year. And it also helped the developers, and I worked for part of the members were the developers. It helped them kind of understand what was going to, what projections might be coming. And what I've been reading, it sounds like, we're kind of trending not nationwide. We're not trending in a good state, so, that's going to play some influence in our decision.
The only concern I have is the old joke, you get 5 economists and you're going to have 5 opinions.
Yes.
Yeah.
They vary vastly. on
I can
what is and what
do,
isn't.
I can just pull the data from different forecasts if you want, and just kind of give you some ranges of what different things are being said right now about
that
the
would be
economy, at
helpful.
least. Sure. Because I agree with Councilmember Hampton. The most concern I have is the real estate values.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen over the next 12 months with that. We've seen some data vet left, but she was presenting us some data at the last meeting, showing a general slowdown from where we were before. We're still, I think, our assessments are going to be fine for FY24. That's just from what I'm looking at the data from calendar year 2022. Things have remained strong. But the following year's assessments for FY25, we could see some issues there. So I think it's important for us to budget conservatively here over the next year, just to prepare for any of those potential impacts that we're going to see.
And I think the forecasting is good, but I'd like to see the budget be an outlay of just 12 months. Just reading some of the budgets, sometimes, around Commonwealth, around the country, when every budgets, you hear some perspectives where it's like gloom and doom if you don't do this, and I don't want us to be in that situation. I think a budget should just be an outlay of 12 months. Obviously, we should always forecast. That should be part of the budget process, but I'd like to see the budget guide, the actual book, and the documentation be more about
The budget book is the next year's. We don't,
there's a lot of, in front of it, there's a lot of theory. If we don't do this, this occurs, and sometimes
It's not
those
theory.
No,
It's-
but they state different things in there, and they haven't come through, and it's just, I don't think that's fair to the residents. I mean, we should forecast it, part of the process.
Yeah.
I just don't, I don't feel comfortable printing something that shows if this doesn't occur, and we don't do this, and this happens, when it's years out. I don't think that's transparent to the community.
I think
But-
it's very transparent and signifies that if we take certain decisions now, it can have some negative ramifications down the road.
So-
I don't plan on changing my executive summary. If you guys want to modify the budget book to reflect what you guys want, that's fine, but I'm not going to alter my work for what I believe you all need to be informed about and what the residents need to be informed about potential future financial disasters if we make the wrong decisions today. I wish they would have done that in the 2000s so that we would have avoided the disasters that we inherited in 2016,
And I agree, I think that should be
2017.
part of the forecasting. I just don't own a budget book, I should say,
Yeah,
because.
the majority of the budget book is the
Yeah,
next
over
year,
12
just the
months.
next year, yeah.
Okay.
Every departmental budget, just next year. We had the tables in the back. If you guys want to, so please provide comments, I think, on what you would want to see different in the budget book. But certainly, the way I present budget, I do believe that every community needs to know what the potential ramifications are of decisions today down the road.
Yes, absolutely. Complete agreement there. Because we've experienced the worst of times.
Yes, we
We
have.
know what that's like.
Yeah, we just don't want to fall back to where we were.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other change, but before we keep discussing, I just want to point out that this year, the school board and myself will be presenting our budgets the same night. So before we had a separate meeting, so that actually does reduce your meeting volume, and it makes it efficient that you will see the full city budget and you'll see the school budget that same night as well. And then that will give, so we can really advertise this to residents to, hey, please pay attention April 4th, because that is the budget night. That's when you're going to hear everything from both city and schools. And we hope to hear back from our residents. April 18th is when we usually like them to provide us initial input based off what they saw on April 4th.
Okay, so that'll be a twofer.
Yeah.
Mr. City Manager, is it possible during that night on April 4th to pretty much keep it to the budget, not a lot of extraneous items on our agenda?
Yeah, especially if you keep this schedule, because we would meet then on the 11th, and we can handle any other items on that night. And if so, Councilman Carrera's suggestion, I think that deserves a discussion here. What he recommended was April 11th and April 25th, we don't actually do departmental updates. It's just a Q&A session with me and the department directors here, and we can assign which department director we'd want to come to that night. But that gives you guys more time for discussion, if that's what you guys want to do, in more of a Q&A format versus a presentation and answers. But that wasn't discussed, but I think that's worthwhile, because that does give you more time then on those nights to take care of city business, because April 4th and April 18th, you're going to have longer budget presentations.
I think it's worth
Would
a
it-
try.
Yes.
Would it be possible to adjust the time of the presentations by the?
Start
still-
earlier?
I'm sorry?
Like start earlier? Start earlier in the evening?
Well, we could do that, or we could adjust the amount of time that is allotted to each presentation.
What we can do is a simple summary slide for the department. And each department, as they come up for Q&A, we have a summary slide of their budget up. And you can just go off of
Yeah.
asking questions and just seeing that summary slide of their
That
budget.
would sort of be a compromise.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay, okay.
Well, Calvin's summary slide is going to be like 25, is it here?
That is a challenge. Now, for Calvin's, again, we're going to have a separate one for general fund, water and sewer. There's no way you can fit all of that in in one summary slide there. So, but to your point, that is correct. And eventually, we do want to split off general services functions from Calvin's purview and have that be a standalone
Enterprise funds
as well.
should be separate.
Yeah, enterprise funds should be separate, absolutely.
Would we still get like their presentation ahead of time so that we could read through it and come armed with questions?
So do you want to actually get like a PowerPoint presentation, full one developed by them, but then just have the summary slide
Yes.
for that night?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, that makes sense.
Yes.
Okay, and then you could read ahead and then ask any questions based off the presentation?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the consensus then?
Yes.
That's fine.
All right, okay. So that would give you then more time, April 11th, April 25th, to tackle other agenda items, so you could just really focus on the budget presentations on April 4th and the CIP on April 18th.
Excellent.
Okay.
And those nights that we have discussion the budget, could we also make sure that there's no closed session those nights as well?
I would like to say yes, but unfortunately, over the last few
Possible.
years,
That's
some
hard to
economic
predict.
development things
But if
came up.
at all
I will try
possible.
to, limit it to only what's absolutely kind of emergency and time sensitive as much as I can. Another thing to point out, we have May 9th. That's a special governing body meeting. But if you guys feel ready May 2nd, you can, and you're ready to set the advertised tax rates and spending levels and the school budget by May 2nd. You don't have to meet on May 9th. But I leave that here just in case you're not done by May 2nd. But I give that to you all as,
We can always cancel.
absolutely. So, but if you're feeling comfortable with it, you can take care of it May 2nd. But if you need more time, then May 9th would be the backdrop. And that's the latest date that we would need to have that decision made, so we can have our public hearing by June 6th. And then we have the requisite 2 weeks afterwards to begin adopting the budget. And then worst case, again, June 30th if needed.
Okay. Is everyone, do we have consensus about what we've discussed so far? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You look puzzled.
No, I'm fine.
There's just
And please, Councilman Carrera's point, please send me any comments of how you would want to, if you want to trim down the budget book, or, what you think is missing from the budget book, and then I can bring that back in our follow-up discussions for how you'd want us to modify if necessary.
And copy all of us so that we know
Yeah,
what's
absolutely.
being said.
Mhm.
Okay.
And then I can bring it up for discussion if there's key points
Okay.
for key reforms to bring it back for future discussion.
Okay.
Well, what are we doing with the schools then? A Q&A, or are we actually going to have a
No,
presentation?
you're going to have a presentation on April 4th from myself. I'll do the full city budget presentation, and then I'll be followed by the school board who will brief the school.
why wouldn't the schools go first?
If you want to have the schools go first, we can do
They
that.
usually always go.
Yeah, they usually been coming for some meetings, like we would schedule at the last meeting in March, we'd have the school board come in. Sometimes they've been later, unfortunately, and they sometime middle to late April, but last year they made their time. I think it was the last week of March that they came in and presented. So if you guys want the school board presenting first?
Yeah.
Okay, we can do that.
Yeah.
If there's no other comments or questions, we'll move on to the staff recommended motion that the governing body approve and adopt the budget calendar for FY24 budget as presented.
So moved.
All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, public comment time. Is there anyone who would like to make public comment? Seeing no one and hearing no one, we will move on to manager's report.
Okay, so tonight we have Department of Social Services giving their Q2 or Q1 update, sorry. Q2 was to me this week. Q1 is to all of you all. Before that, though, just a reminder, those the governing body members who are coming next week to Richmond, please let Kelly know if you need transportation. We're planning on convening here and then heading down as well. That's just a kind of side comment. Please send her an email if you need transportation.
Welcome, Randy.
Gotcha. Good evening, Mayor and council members, new and old. Happy New Year to you. It feels kind of strange that I'm here tonight for the first quarter, like Laszlo said, but here I am, so I'll make this as brief as possible. First, I just wanted to start off by highlighting some of the activities we participated in for the first quarter. It was really great for staff to be able to get back out into the community. We participated in a lot of the city events that happened between July and September. So just a few of the events and the pictures. The grand opening of the new city hall was fantastic, and we always
walk in the Out of Darkness Walk that is held at the Harris Pavilion to raise mental health and suicide prevention awareness. I wanted to let you know that we are at a total of 22 staff members. 20 are full-time, 2 part-time, and this year we do have 2 interns. We've stayed fully staffed. We did have 1 vacancy. Our HSA, which is a part-time position in our benefits, was vacant for a short period of time, but the new individual just started January 3rd, so we're fully staffed right now, which is fantastic. Next here, just briefly looking at our first quarter numbers from our admin side of the house. You can see here that we spiked in August and September for back to school. That's typical. We're also seeing that a lot of residents are still continuing to use electronic means to interact with our staff, whether that be using our phone, our email, our Dropbox. I guess dropping off isn't really electronic, but other means of actually coming into the lobby. But we do have residents coming back in, and it's good to see faces, but it's also great to be more paperless and just more streamlined. We also think that in September this year, the large spike in our phone calls and our inquiries were a result of the pandemic EBT cards. The state issued those to the schools. There was a lot of confusion as to who was going to get a card, if the resident should be contacting the schools or State Richmond or DSS, but eventually we were able to get information out to residents and get that resolved. So I think when we look at the second quarter numbers, we'll see a drop there. Moving to our benefits department, again, pretty streamlined, nothing out of the norm here. And just a reminder that the emergency assistance is the program that typically does stay lower as it's seasonal. In the summer months, it's cooling, and in the winter months, it's fuel. Let's see here. Just stop me if you have any questions. Lastly here, our services numbers, again, pretty streamlined with the exception of the spike in September when school starts back up. We typically see an increase in CPS calls and intakes from students being back in school, going to the doctors for physicals and things like that. And to further break down the services numbers to focus in on CSA and foster care numbers. The CSA count, again, does typically stay the same. Those are mostly IEP children that are referred to from the schools. They typically come in as kindergartners and stay with the program until they graduate or move out of the city of Manassas Park. So we don't see much fluctuation in our CSA count. However, our foster care count, we have seen that jump quite drastically. The end of the last quarter, we were at 22, and within the first quarter, we did drop down to 18 youth in care. We did have some adoptions, and we did have a youth that returned home. So that's always great to see the numbers drop for those reasons. And I did want to point out that these numbers for our foster care are just from June to September. I think that we'll continue to see fluctuation just with the times that we're living in right now. I think that this will be more average, that we have a larger foster care caseload. I think the times of having 2 kids in care, 3 kids in care won't be our norm. I think that this is going to be what we average going forward. I also like to point out that this combination of youth are funded through CSA, which has that larger city match rate of the 4.273%. So this is one of our largest budget areas, so I always like to highlight, keep you guys abreast on what's happening with this population. And I think that's it.
Thank you, Randy. We
You're welcome.
appreciate that. And please thank all of your staff for the very meaningful work that they do in the community. You mentioned that you're fully staffed now.
Yeah.
Do you find that that reduces stress on your staffers? Do you see that they're less stressed?
No, to be honest, no. I get really excited, though. I get excited just to see how long people are staying with our agency. I get excited just to watch people grow that come in as human services assistants, like this new young lady that we just hired. She's from New Jersey, and she has a lot of state experience, and it's really great to watch the staff join us and want to stay with us and grow within our agency. Like, for example, Aurora Monroy, she's one of our staff members on the benefits side. She started as a part-time HSA. She is now a benefits specialist 3. We've seen her, graduate college, get her puppy, get engaged. She's about to get married. It's just absolutely fantastic just to watch individuals grow. So I think it's always great when we bring somebody new on board. That gets us excited. But as far as the workload with the pandemic and the unwinding, we're just trying to brace ourselves for what's coming forward. So to have the staff is fantastic, but I don't necessarily think it reduces their stress.
Yeah. Super. Okay.
And Randy,
Yes, go ahead.
Randy, you just want to briefly mention what's happening in the benefits world starting in April?
Yes,
Yeah.
yep. So we think that we do now have an official end date for the pandemic benefits, which is slated to end April for our SNAP and our Medicaid. So right now, it's very important for residents that receive benefits to report any change to our agency that may impact their case, but especially address changes. We're going to see renewals going back out, redeterminations going back out, and that is already the case for our VIEW and our TANF participants. The pandemic services ceased as of January 1st for that population, but April, they're telling us now. They've told us many times, but we really believe that April is going to be the end date where we will resume regular practices for benefits. And we're trying to determine what process to use. We've decided what's going to work best for us is we'll use the original date, meaning if someone had a renewal that was due in April of 2020, then they will be due in April 2023 and so on. And then we'll just incorporate them in with the population that is applying now in April 2023, if that makes sense. So we're really worried about the appeal process and the fraud. Being a small unit, being a small agency and generic workers, we don't really have designated staff to work on those items, and the state is telling us that it will be the locality's responsibility to handle those. I'm hoping that they provide additional funding with no local match for all that extra work, but right now that's just in legislative talks, but we're just getting ready to, we're bracing for the storm to come as best as we can.
Thank you. Councilmember Moore,
I just want to quickly commend your use of interns. It's just wonderful. I met a couple of them from George Mason. They're doing fabulous work, and it's just great that we're incorporating the young people into our program.
Yes, I'm so excited to have 2 this year. That's helping. That gets us excited because they're free. And sometimes they stay on with us too. So yeah. Oh, and the other thing I would like to mention, especially for our residents, is the EBT scams that are happening right now. We do have messaging out, we have flyers posted, but be very cautious if anyone is calling you regarding your SNAP benefits. There's skimming, scamming, and reproduction of cards right now, and localities are not at this time, able to replenish benefits. We're encouraging residents to make a report with the police department for fraud. So definitely very important. Address changes and EBT SNAP card scam.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Comments or questions?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so
Thanks.
much, Randy.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. Okay. We do not have a closed session, is my understanding. Is that correct? Okay.
I spared you this week. Next week, get ready for it. I said next week we'll have it, yeah.
Next week,
Yeah.
okay. Is there anything else for the good of the city? Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained?